But first, let's take a look at radio waves and see what they're really like. Understanding their characteristics may make your diagnosis easier and help you explain to your customers some natural causes of disruption. Radio signals are oscillations or waves at very high frequencies that travel through space at the speed of light. If we mix the radio wave, called a carrier, with sound information, we say the radio wave is modulated. The radio wave plus the modulations goes to your receiver, where the carrier is removed, leaving the sound information which comes through the speaker. Noise in the form of energy from lightning, sparks, and other sources can also modulate the radio wave and be carried into the radio receiver. There are two ways of modulating the carrier wave: amplitude modulation, called AM, and frequency modulation, FM. Amplitude modulation uses the audio signal or sound information to vary the carrier's voltage and hence the amplitude of the carrier wave. FM keeps the amplitude constant and uses frequency changes to carry the sound information. Each type of modulation has advantages and disadvantages. AM, for example, carries for long distances, especially at night. This leads to problems of stations overlapping, one kind of interference. Also, AM very easily picks up and reproduces noise, such as electrical disturbances. FM, on the other hand, is much less affected by noise pulses, which usually appear as amplitude changes. But FM suffers from other problems caused by its characteristic of line-of-sight transmission. Buildings can shield one station's signal and allow a momentarily stronger signal to be captured. Again, FM radio reception might be momentarily canceled because of a strong reflection of its own signal. This causes wave interference with dead spots in certain areas. Troubleshooting radio complaints begins with understanding exactly what the car owner's problem is and when and where it occurs. The customer's description of the problem is important, and you should encourage it. The sound system may be inoperative, or have intermittent operation, or have noisy reception. Often, the customer's complaint can lead you directly to the problem area: the power supply, the speaker, the antenna, the radio itself, or natural causes that you can do nothing about. If the system is dead or works intermittently, check the power supply beginning at the radio fuse. Look for power on both sides of the fuse, then at the radio harness connector. Also, make sure the radio ground strap or grounding bracket is securely fastened. As the switch is turned on, a good radio system will cause a definite thump in the speaker. If there's power to the set but no thump at the speaker, try a known good substitute speaker. If you do not get a thump with a good substitute speaker, the wiring from the radio to the speaker could be open, or the radio itself may be at fault. You can check the speaker wiring for opens or shorts with an ohmmeter. If you do get a speaker thump but no reception, it could be an antenna problem. A no reception problem could be as simple as a disconnected antenna. Seat the cable plug all the way in and wiggle the cable to uncover any intermittent shorts or opens as you listen for a signal. If you still get no reception, try substituting a known good antenna. A possible cause of reception problems in power antennas may be the antenna cable, or perhaps improper seating of the coaxial cable connector at the antenna body. The connector nut must be tight enough to force the cable connector shoulder tight against the receptacle. Hand tighten first, then tighten 1/8 turn more with a wrench. If you suspect a bad power antenna cable, try substituting a cable you know to be good. Antenna motor operating problems may be caused by no ground at the motor or no power to the separate windings for up and down. Check both sides with a hot positive lead. The yellow lead is up, the brown lead is down. When checking or replacing either whip or power antennas, make sure the attachment to the car body is tight to provide a good ground connection. Weak reception on AM could be caused by incorrect antenna trim in the radio. The trim is preset at the factory and normally should not require resetting. However, whenever the antenna is replaced or a radio is returned from service, a trimming adjustment should be made. The car's electrical system itself generates many kinds of radio frequency noise. Suppression of these noises requires that all noise suppression devices be present and properly mounted. Alternator whine and ignition noise are often due to a poor ground caused by improperly attached or missing ground straps. Also, be sure the battery and alternator connections are tight. Alternator whine could also be caused by either a faulty or poorly connected alternator capacitor, or faulty diodes, which would also affect the charging circuit. On the car, you can make a quick check for a good charging circuit with a voltmeter. Incidentally, all cars with 100 amp alternators also require a choke in the radio power lead to help suppress alternator noise. The choke is located near the radio power connection. It may also be mounted on the rear radio bracket, which also acts as the ground strap on certain models. Notice that the choke, which looks like a small transformer, is placed in series in the red radio power supply lead. The ignition coil may be a cause of radio noise if the suppression capacitor at the coil is faulty or missing, or if the spark plug wires are not the radio suppression type, are worn, or are improperly routed. Also check for open spark plug wires with an ohmmeter. Resistance should not exceed 50,000 ohms. Sound distortion can also be caused by the speakers themselves. Sometimes, complaints of buzz, distorted, or noisy radios can be traced to a speaker. A good question to ask is whether the noise occurs only at certain times, perhaps only during the low tones or with a high instrument. But rather than the speaker itself, poor speaker quality may be caused by improper speaker mounting. All attaching screws should be present and be tight, but not so tight that the speaker frame is twisted. Loose electrical connections can obviously give intermittent performance. And with multiple speakers commonly being used these days, you have a built-in test rig for comparing speakers against each other and against the radio itself. With any speaker system, you can substitute a known good speaker of the same type to see how it sounds. Remember to keep the radio off when the speakers are disconnected, since this may damage the radio. Many so-called problems are solved simply by proper operation of the radio itself. Often, fine-tuning is all that's required to give perfect reception. And owners may just push buttons and not realize that buttons, too, have to be fine-tuned. Sound problems with tape players, such as bad cartridges, are a little different than radio problems. You'll find the full story on 8-track service in your reference book. Today's Chrysler Corporation Advanced Solid-State Sound Equipment offers not only superb sound reproduction, but also a higher level of service reliability. With just a few checks, you'll be able to handle any customer problem that can show up in the radio sound system. And your well-informed customers can handle the rest.
Oh, is there alligators in